Hi, everyone. It's Andrea Quagenti, and we are here for the Self-Directed Education group call. This is our 21st one-hour call. We're so excited to be here. We've got a lot of fun things happening at home today. Angela and I are your hosts, and we've got some guests today. So thank you, Daniel and Amy, for joining us.
Yeah, and before we started the call, just what was coming up naturally for Andrea and I think, Andrea, you just visited a learning center, and then I just started going full-time working at a Sudbury school that is kind of unique because it has an on-campus program, but it also has a virtual program. Hey, Jazzy, we're doing a meeting right now. This room's gotta be quiet. It's okay. So I guess to start, if anyone has any questions or why you want to share why you joined the call, we can address those, but we can also dive into conversations just about our experiences in those environments.
I'm just here because I've seen these calls for a while, and this is the first one that I've been able to get to, and I just wanted to hop on and check it out. I'm interested, what Sudbury did you recently join with?
Yeah, the open school in Orange County. But then their virtual program is for students everywhere. So my kids have actually been attending that school they're going on their 4th year. And then for a while I did and I still do them, but for I think it's been like 2 years now, I did the parent program for that. So it's really cool. It's like the parent support meeting, I guess, where parents get on and discuss their experience with self-directed education. But it wasn't until March of last year that I started becoming a staff on campus and just now started going full-time into that. Yeah. Had you heard of the open school before?
I have not. No, I'm opposite coast here.
Oh, okay.
Like Philly area with Philly ALC and whatnot.
Andrea, which is the place that you just visited?
Yeah, so I'm based out of Massachusetts, and today we visited the Intentions Agile Learning Center in Upton, Mass. It's just so awesome. So right now my daughter doesn't attend a self-directed school. We're doing unschooling and road schooling and world schooling. So I just execute the unschooling on my own on the road. But we love the idea of learning centers and Sudbury schools. So I like to visit them. Potentially we might join one day, or we might actually even create one. So today was just super awesome because my daughter and I haven't been in that self-directed space for a while now. And she's like, I love it. I want to go all the time. And this particular learning center that we went to today, they host homeschoolers. So all the children are already registered, their parents register them as homeschoolers. And then the program that she's running, it's just on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 3. She's got mixed ages, total self-directed. Today they did some awesome stuff. They made a cake from scratch. They built a mermaid with fondant. They shared the cake. They sang happy birthday. They were practicing a play. One of the students, you can tell I'm so excited. We just got back. One of the students wrote a small Halloween play, and some of the students agreed to be in it. So they practiced the play that they're going to put on next week for the parents. So much more awesome stuff. I love it. And thankfully my daughter loves it too. She thrives in the self-directed environment. I left for a couple hours and came back, and she was like, it looked like she had known those children for years and had been at that school for ever, and she had only been there for a couple hours. So it really fits my personality and my daughter's as well.
Nice. Are you considering joining that learning center?
We're just so up in the air right now. As you guys know, well, as you know, Angela, we put our stuff in storage over the summer to travel full time in our camper. And I don't see that it would be super long term that we travel. I was thinking maybe a year or two, go cross country, go see you, Angela, go to California, see everything. But also if we did find a place, we would definitely consider relocating for sure. Um, I don't think my daughter and I have to kind of like talk about it a little bit. I don't know that we would relocate to this part of Massachusetts because we have so many friends and family where we're from in Mass. So I don't know that we would relocate like an hour and a half away from our home. I'm not
Yeah,
sure. It would just be like a question mark at this point. If it was like the
totally.
Bahamas and she loved it, then I would be like, yes, I will relocate. If it was because I love like warm tropical beach, like I would even consider California because of the weather. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So we had talked like I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago or so now about the possibility of opening up another campus, like another, whether it's an open school campus or its own thing, but that's really exciting. I was actually on a call earlier today with another staff person who works at the same school that I work, and he's going to open up a campus in Japan. He lives in Saipan right now, and he works virtually. He works on the virtual program. And it was so interesting because he comes from a I guess you could say a spiritual background. Like he got into New Age philosophy, then he got into Eastern mysticism, and now he's studying like Orthodox Christianity, like Christian mysticism from like the 400 ADs, like or something like this. He was explaining to me. I might have that date wrong. He was just explaining this to me today. But he's also interested in. He's leaving the school next year, and he's going to start a school in Japan that's based and founded on the philosophies of ancient mysticism, I guess. It's not like teaching kids mysticism or anything like that, but basically the philosophies of the school and the structures of the school will be in alignment with those perspectives. So I don't know, this stuff just gets really interesting. Like you go down the rabbit hole of like the potentials. And it kind of reminded me of the conversation that you and I had, Andrea. It's like some of the structures of Sudbury schools are already in alignment with those. Basically what it is honoring the soul of the child or a spirit of a child. It's taken into consideration that we're probably not just machines and that each individual is very unique and comes with their own type of interests, callings, stuff like that, that is totally suited for them. That there is a mystical aspect to reality, and therefore giving children freedom and giving children a voice and allowing them to self-direct makes sense. And so we honor that. So it's not like, oh my gosh, he's opening up like an Orthodox Christian school. It's not that. It's that we're honoring like these sort of mystical perspectives beyond what Newtonian physics might tell us, and creating structure. So it's cool. Anyhow, kind of a big concept.
That's pretty awesome in Japan. I mean, it's like a brick and mortar type school? You said virtual, but does it also include like kids going to it?
So the program that he works in for the open school right now, it does not have a brick and mortar. It's completely virtual. The school that he would want to open up, though, would have a in-person brick and mortar location. That's what he's moving into right now.
We've considered Japan. My wife is Japanese, and we've considered moving to Japan, but like the like unschooling is super gray area for Japan because homeschooling is not really it's like the only way that homeschooling is allowed is if you refuse to go to school, and that's the only like loophole. So I didn't obviously I didn't want to like move to Japan and then find out that like that loophole didn't work for us for some reason. So I mean we've given it a lot of thought, but that's interesting to hear about a school opening up. Saipan, right?
Yeah,
That's a really small island, really far away from the mainland.
okay. See, I'm not even that familiar, and I'm not familiar with the laws either. So I'd be curious, like, I'm sure he has a game plan and he's done a lot of research, but I certainly don't know like how that would work. Yeah.
I think if it's a brick and mortar school, then like, you know, we don't have to worry about like homeschooling at that point. But again, I don't know either.
Maybe you
Yeah.
should link them up, Angela, if that's okay with you, Daniel. She could, I don't know, make a connection for the two of you, and you could, follow his, experience.
For sure.
Yeah. So I can check, his name's Eric, and I could just check with him and be like, so hey, are you at the stage where you're like ready to talk to potential families who are interested in this and see and then connect you? I wonder if you could maybe link in the chat or something, or you could send it to me privately, like some way for me to send you his or
Sure.
send him your information.
That
Yeah,
would, yeah.
cool.
I'm just checking the invite one more time just to make sure that I saw Amy was able to join, which is awesome. Yeah, Daniel, are your children currently at a self-directed school? Are you open to just kind of tell us a little bit more about what's happening with your family?
Yeah, sure. We're unschooling. We started like right kind of before the pandemic hit. And we haven't been to any school, but I've heard a lot about them. I've listened to podcasts and whatnot, and there are a bunch like around us in Philly. And I love the idea. My son's 9, but I do love the idea of like flying squads. And I know they do have one here in Philly. And I used to teach, well, so I'm a certified teacher, which took a lot to like undo all of that, like to de-school from that. And I have my like, master's in education. And I would be interested to actually, at some point in my life, spend a few years working at an ALC or something, a self-directed school, just to kind of, because I know I get a really good feeling that living self-directed values in a family is much different than in like a school or community. And I feel like I have a lot to learn as well.
Mm. You know, it's interesting. The school that I work for right now is actually eventually going to hire someone to direct the virtual program because Eric is leaving. I could send you that information potentially if it's something that you'd be interested in, just to have you. No pressure, of course, but just figured I would. Yeah, cool. So I'll look for your contact info and then send you the link to that job.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just wanted to mention, so I've looked into flying squads and I was like right about to open one up here. We're north of Boston, so in Massachusetts. And then like all of this traveling stuff happened. So they seem so awesome, the flying squads. So I recommend them for sure. And what I was kind of wondering, because I know you mentioned ALC. And so I was just trying, and I don't know if Angela, you know, or Daniel, or if either of you know, but what I was wondering is like, obviously, self-directed education is kind of like the main title, but then you can have a Sudbury School, Liberated Learners. Today we were at an Agile, then there's ALC, and there's, I just like, do you guys know what the difference is between all of the different styles?
I read this pretty cool article by Alexander Cost. I'll try and pick it up, but it's got this, it kind of lays out everything. And without the article, I would have a really hard time. But like basically, he's talking about how self-directed learn. Well, schools can be rated on I want to say there's like fear-based schools, kind of like coercion schools. And then there's a whole other set of uncoerced learning. And those can be like separated by either kind of anarchy or socialism or like libertarian leanings. And it's a really interesting article. Let me see if I can find it. But it definitely has like all the schools broken down enough to like kind of get a feeling of, oh, okay, that's where they fall kind of on the spectrum.
Yeah, that I'm so interested in that article. I love how they break down like these are fear-based schools and like then here's the other world, because I think that really gets to the root of it. That's come up in conversation so many times. It's like a lot of the institutions that we have today, and not just schools, we can look at schools as like a microcosm of it, is fear-based. Like it's like I'm afraid that if I don't, you know, hand you all of the information that's out there, if I don't expose you to everything, you will somehow be lacking. And if I don't force you to do it, then you're not going to be able. It's all based in like worry and doubt and fear. It's I don't know,
Mhm.
it's crazy. Um,
Yeah,
so
if I
it's pretty
find
beautiful to watch it in the other way, like what happens when we actually live from places of like trust.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's really like the backbone of self-directed education is there's a great quote. I think we were talking about it on one of the previous calls, and it's like the hardest thing is to trust children because we were raised that we couldn't be trusted. Children can't be trusted. You can't, trust yourself. So all of this, non-trust makes has people in fear that if you don't control children they're gonna and the laundry list of things actually was reading something the other day, and it was like what teachers told me, you're in this is just what I read, you'll end up under a bridge, you won't be able to get a job, you'll be homeless, just it's like it's like so fear based, and it's like, oh my god, well I have to do, the children think like if I don't get good grades, go to college, get a job, whatever that narrative is, then all of these horrible bad things are going to happen to me, and um
Yeah.
it's so bad, it's like, and then eventually, because I did a lot of deschooling myself as well, and then you start to kind of untwine all of that, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, if we're born with gifts and talents and creativity and passions and motivation, if that's all built in, then why not just let the children naturally um, work their way through what they want to learn. It's just so amazing to see. It's like I've just been refreshed because I just saw it. I would say, Daniel, if you can, take your go do a trial day at like the schools, and it's just so awesome. I mean,
yeah.
and you'll be able to see if it's a good fit. But a lot of them are very open to a child coming for like a day, and you don't necessarily have to leave. Like the woman Heather today, she's like, it's really just up to you if, because my daughter was kind of like, she's like, you can go now, go, I want to go hang out with the kids myself. So I did leave, but it could be at the pace, it's not, it could be at the pace that's comfortable, that's right for your children. And seeing just, I mean, Angela, I don't know how you feel like every day that you go in, do you get that like refreshed, like, oh my god, this works, like everyone should be doing this, like I need to announce
Yeah.
this to the world.
Yeah. So but that does take a bit of unschooling yourself, because at first, if you're looking for certain things to tell you that it works, if you're looking to see students all studying college courses and they're all I don't know. If you're looking for certain indicators that it's working, you might be disappointed. But when you really immerse yourself in the community and you start to see like, well, what's actually being learned here? Because it's a lot of it under the surface. A lot of sometimes I wrote a post on this the other day, so I'm going to quote myself, but like sometimes what I wrote is the magic peers its head out in obvious ways, but a lot of times it's underneath the surface, and you have to be there to see like, oh my gosh, these kids are learning really subtle life skills that are really applicable, like self-awareness and stuff like that, that may not be able to be caught on a camera and like posted on Instagram or something and be like, oh, look what we're doing here. A lot of times it's different than that. Other times it's cool, like for example today and over the past few weeks I have caught in a groove with these certain students who are really really interested in like how reality works, how our mind works, how self-awareness, but also like science aspect of it. And today we just did quantum physics watch party where we all brought these really awesome videos and watched together, which led to a conversation about Nikola Tesla. And next week we're diving into a workshop on Nikola Tesla. The week prior we did social psychology experiments. I mean, it can get like totally what you would, anybody who is not deconditioned would say that's awesome, right? But other times it's through the challenges of the community. So in our community, we experience the echoes a little bit of what you see out there in the world. So the challenges that you see today in the news, on social media, are also echoed inside the community. And this like often looks like students getting written up for, I don't want to break anyone's privacy, but students getting written up for like, okay, basically there was an instance of like very subtle bullying. And this happens, we see this in our communities where like, based on a moral basis, like a very activist vibe, you believe that you're doing the right thing and you sort of like attack another person based off of a moral stance. Like, hey, I don't agree with what you're doing. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of students virtually started chiming in, and like it became like a dog pile of like, I'm gonna barf my morals on you and call you names. And like basically, and this is something that you sometimes see out in the community nowadays. This is a problem on social media where it's very, we're very divided right now, and there's a lot of tension. And so this being written up and taken to civics board and being discussed and addressed as a community was a huge source of learning for students, especially students who are taking on an activist energy, because we got to discuss like, well, if you really do believe in something, like what do you think actually helps other people change their behavior? Or you know, not that we want people to see like us or try to convince people to see like us, but if you really think that someone else's behavior is a problem socially, what are the tools and tactics that actually create meaningful change? Because shaming them and calling them names and telling them they are all these things only creates a bigger divide. You didn't help. If you really wanted to help that student, I don't think you made it any difference. All you did was create more friction and more drama, you know what I mean? And so we get into these really deep like psychological discussions on like being open and curious and asking questions and trying to understand each other is actually how we bridge these gaps. If that's, and you might get a reflection back and learn that your, you know, opinion and stance wasn't even correct. Anyway, it's like those are the subtle things you can't catch on camera. There's no way we're going to be able to be like, so what did you learn today? Hold on a second. Let's it's really big, you know? So anyway, it's been great. Yes, I definitely think it works. Absolutely. I guess to sum that up for the students that you know, life's not always picture perfect. And for the students that have more challenges within the system, I believe those students would have those challenges no matter what system they were in. This is something that sometimes comes along where like some individuals may need more help or assistance or support. And so a lot of times when I see like I get worried that like, is this system working for you? It's not because of the system. It's because there's other things going on and other support that child needs, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the conflict resolution. I saw some of that today. You know, and that's not going to be an Instagram moment, you know, seeing kids not get along. I saw some tears, seeing the facilitator initiate conversation. So yeah.
I found that article and I linked it in the chat. And yeah, the fear-based models include, well, obviously, like we have military schools on the far end. If you click on the link, it's like pretty far down in the article. And public schools are like authoritarian. You got Montessori schools and Waldorf schools, which like a lot of people will kind of, I guess, mentally put in that a little bit more of the trust-based models, but this is still keeping them in the fear-based models. And then even all the way up to like progressive schools and democratic schools, while they're like permissive or liberal, they're still kind of fear-based. So then when you get down into the trust-based models, you have Sudbury schools, which are libertarianism. Let's see, Agile ALCs are like anarchism, free schools, modern schools. And then Summerhill is like mutual aid, and then free schools are socialism. And then what's really cool is that you like, obviously unschoolers can fit anywhere on this spectrum. And it's just really like the socialism, they call them communal unschoolers. For anarchism, they call them decolonizing unschoolers, and then for libertarianism, self-governed unschoolers, and that totally makes sense. But this was something that I found maybe a year ago, and I was like, wow, like it kind of blew a lot of things open for me to like really understand. And even just the schools, like understanding where they were, but then also like I had started leaning towards like an anarchy type mindset. Obviously not like the chaos type version of anarchy, but like more of people can volunteer and work together to make stuff happen without government involved. And it was really cool just seeing this all kind of laid out like this.
Yeah, so that also resonates with like we have individuals who also resonate really strongly with anarchy. And that comes up in conversation too. And I feel like I'm not an expert on anarchist theory, but like it resonates with me, like without me diving into it. Like I feel some like, or I hear some conversations and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I heard someone say that the model of schooling that we do is like an anarchist based model. Like although there's plenty of rules, it's just that the rules, and I think that's democracy too. So it's interesting. Like I'm curious where democracy and anarchism like cross paths a little bit, because it's like everyone can change the rules. Everyone has a fair vote. It's not that there's no rules or no law. It's just that like, it's just like kind of like a free thing where anyone can create what they want to within this space, as long as it's not hurting anybody else. I'm curious where that intersects with anarchy.
It's again, I might not be the person to ask this because I'm still like on my journey trying to understand this as well. But I feel like it's hard to say, because when we say Sudbury school, well, so democratic schools obviously have that democracy in them. But once everybody decides something, then you have to follow that rule, which is kind of why it's put up into a little bit of that, like the liberal end of the fear-based model. But then when we talk about Sudbury schools or like ALCs, it's do whatever you want. Your freedom is okay as long as you're not like harming other people or, you know, messing with other people's freedom, which I think is a really key point. And I mean, of course, you're in a community, so there's other thoughts in there. But it's not, hey, let's sit down and make rules. It's, hey, something came up, let's have a conversation about this. Does this require us to make, you know, a rule about this? And is that a rule only for this class or for this year? Might that change with the different kids that we have, you know, coming in the next term or semester or what have you? And it's always fluid and never like set in like really hard and fast rules. I guess to me, it seems like a lot more flexible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see that like in action at the school, and it doesn't feel very different to me, except for it's just interesting because the culture of a school, like you can have these like frameworks, right? But very quickly the culture of a space can like be shifted just by the energy of the people who are involved in the school. So it's like if we all start making civic sports strictly about making rules and not about like having conversations and conflict resolution, the school could shift in that direction where like, oh, well, let's just make rules about everything. And sometimes it can feel that way, but then we remind ourselves, okay, we're actually here to like help everybody learn. It's not, but it's like you don't have to make rules. So it's like we had a situation last week or so where some students had built a fort, and they told me it was okay to share this. I'm about to post a post on this, so it's all good to share. But they had built a fort, and these girls put a "No Boys Allowed" sign outside the fort, and a boy, a pretty sensitive boy who was already feeling left out, got upset about it, and then mysteriously the sign outside the fort disappeared to be later found in the trash. And so the girls were like very emotional, and they go to write him up. You cannot touch my personal property. This is one of our community agreements. You cannot destroy personal property. And then that boy had intercepted them before they could like submit their write up, and was just expressing like how much he didn't agree with no boys being allowed. And all of a sudden the law book got brought out and the students are like poring over the law book, trying to find out, did the girls break a rule? Like, what are the rules around forts? Can you be excluded based off your gender? Like all this stuff. And no one could find a rule. The rule really hadn't been created yet. There's a bunch of other rules about bullying and stuff like this, but specifically for this instance, there was the child could not really see like where to write them up. So then a bigger discussion started happening just naturally on its own. Like, what do we think the rules should be? Or what is the right thing to do in this situation? You know, rules excluded, whether it's a rule or not, like just as human beings. And just through sitting down on a couch together, there were 4 students sitting down on a couch together. The girls at the end of it ripped up their write-up and threw it in the trash. The no boys allowed sign was taken down for now. I have seen another one be made over the past couple weeks, but for that moment, they took it down. And they were all just playing peacefully. And I even asked, I'm like, well, I'm an adult, so I'm like, we should make a rule about, like, maybe we should have some rule about forts. This incident happened. Do you guys want to make a rule? And they're all just like, I think we're good. No, I think we figured it out. We don't need to make a rule. We're confident in our community. It was just such a cool moment. So I don't know. That just came to my head.
I would be interested to figure out what caused the girls to start with that no boys allowed. I wonder if there's a backstory there that like prompted that. For us, I feel like, oh, we hear that in our lives, but I feel like for self-directed learners that it kind of hits a little different.
Yeah. I don't know what the whole backstory is, but I do know some, because when we got into it and they started deliberating, the girls were like, wait a minute, you guys made a no girls allowed sign like last week. And remember Reed did this, da, 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 da. So I think that they have an ongoing relationship happening. I don't know, but
Okay.
I love those like just real life, real world topics to be able to. I just think it's amazing to have children be able to you know, come up with some type of rule or sign, and then to have people not, you know, go against it, and then to be able to resolve that in a way that is so mature and so thoughtful. I can, you know, I was at home, I'm one of 4, so it was like always chaos, whether it was girls or boys, and things were not settled in a way of like a nice, gentle kind of like, let's all sit down. It was like, you know, usually it was, and I think that this is kind of similar in like a traditional school, is if there is a situation, one party is found to blame and the other is you know, maybe there's some type of forced apology and then like some detention from whoever did like the wrong thing. So taking such a neutral position and really honoring all sides is, I just find it so mature and helpful to be in that type of energy and that type of environment. So yay. But then I kind of think about it like, would I want to be a facilitator trying to kind of like work through this? But what I find a lot, and even like especially with the unschooling world, is like a lot of times like my answer is just and then before I can even like come up with something, usually the kids or my daughter will she'll just get an idea, thank God, because I'm just like, I don't even know, you know. So like usually my first answer when it's like strategizing, my first maybe 3 answers is and like what are your thoughts, you know. And then like, this is probably a good unschooling tip, or even just for like peaceful parenting, is like and see what they come up with.
I learned that so often, like even in that situation, like I was feeling things and I was like, sort of like had the impulse to assert myself, like, well, let's make a rule and like, and I had to stop myself because they were like, they were fine. I think my being there and my presence there helped some things. But they really like figured it out. I don't know. It's cool to see. And that stuff cannot be taught on a test, you know what I mean? That stuff cannot be like bottled in a curriculum and like taught. That has to be life and just space and time and openness for like stuff to arise. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about like how school prioritizes visible learning, whereas self-directed education, we start to recognize that most of learning isn't visible, for sure.
Yeah, like the learning that like my husband and I were just talking about this. So the learning that is really important, but also like it kind of takes time. Is that underneath subtle learning, morality, who am I, conflict resolution, the stuff that takes wisdom and time and life experience. The other stuff, I'm not saying that like it's not important if you want to be an astrophysicist to learn some technical stuff and maybe go to college and stuff like that. It's just that it almost feels like that can be learned at any time. And that if you have these core like self-understandings and working in a community, that's going to help you wherever you go. It's going to help you in like all fields, and that's stuff that cannot just be picked up in a book and read and learned. But astrophysics, perhaps you can, you know what I mean? Like you can go to a class and learn that. So I don't know. It's cool.
Yeah, I think it's like the hard skills and the soft skills. If I'm just thinking like business terminology, I don't even, um, I can remember being a hiring manager, and anyone you could train just about anyone to do the job, but you're really looking for the personality, a team player, someone who can take criticism, so, someone, so those types of like soft skills, someone who's motivated, self-motivated, motivated to come in and just wants to do a good job, all of those soft skills. And it was funny because we used to have like really detailed conversations as hiring managers, like, where do these skills even come from? And, how can we, because what we wanted to do as hiring managers is find the right people that would thrive and last at the jobs. And we're like, where do these soft skills even come from? It's like, and I think we had determined, this was like 15 years ago, I think we had just determined it's just some people have it and some people don't, and it's kind of cool to reflect now, years and years later, that I can actually see a system that helps develop those soft skills, um, because I didn't know where they came from, or even where you could send a child to develop those types of skills. So now I know, like, so.
I've thought about this before because I also was a hiring manager, and I almost could not find a correlation between like resume and like the necessary skills for like those soft skills that we're talking about. And even with like, the intense and great and well thought out questions that we had for the interview, if a person was just cheating their way to get in and they were good at cheating, there was no way we were going to figure that out until like the second week that they were on the job. And then it would start to show. And I just don't, it's crazy. And it makes me think of like tests, like performative tests, but also written tests. So if we're talking about the resume versus the interview, like it just, I don't know. And I get that there's a lot of qualitative points here, but maybe that's better because we're dealing with people. I'm still boggled that we haven't figured out how to hire people and really understand what they're like, given that like, life needs jobs and money and hiring and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have been or ladies have given any thought to that.
What was the exact question?
Yeah, so I think it's just mind-boggling to me that when I went through hiring as a hiring manager, like hiring people, someone could have an amazing resume, and they could have like an amazing interview, an amazing working interview, and they could still not be the right person for the job. And not that it was just some random example of them not being good, but like it seemed like really there wasn't a lot of correlation between resumes and interviews and like actually good. Like you can tell if someone doesn't know about the job, and that's like, the hard skills that we're talking about, but the soft skills are sometimes easy to fake in the test that we give them, like give us your resume and let's do an interview.
Yeah. I don't know if I've given much thought to that exact thing, but like, yeah, I think I remember when I was going through like a test period of being hired at the school, like they don't just hire you, like you got to work there for like 3 months on under like a fellowship and see, maybe that's a way to like see, I don't know.
I think that makes sense because you're not gonna be faking for 3 months.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot, but I also see a lot of I see a lot of companies doing that these days, but I also see a lot of companies that no matter what, they need the workers. I don't know if self-directed education is in this same kind of boat, but definitely with teaching and whatnot, even if you're still in your trial period and it was horrible, they're still going to need the teacher, when it comes to the end of that period in our current society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that being the case now, but previous times, I mean, geez, that would have been great, to get them on the job for a month, a couple weeks, a month, and then you'd know immediately. Um, but I can't remember or think of any. And I remember at some point we could do like personality tests and all this data we could compile. And like you said, it was just so hard to tell who was
Mm.
actually going to be motivated, going to be a good fit, because we were in a team environment. And yeah, I don't, maybe now, or maybe there'll be more ways to test that, or maybe there never will be, besides just it's just being a hands-on thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think you guys have probably all heard this, but I think that like some of the threats to jobs, although I don't really believe in that, I think there's always abundance, but is technology, right? Taking over some of the more menial, like repetitive stuff. So like preparing our kids in this way, sending them to self-directed schools and developing these soft skills is what will be needed in the job force more than not.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. As yeah, I had never even really thought about marketing self-directed education. Not that I market self-directed education, but it's a great way to talk about it, especially for people that are like, wait a minute, like where's the test? There's no report cards. Like, how do you know? And um, this will give me some new talking points. So, thank you, because this is like, like we were saying, the part that you can't really quantify. Um, and it's right. You're right that if the child is self-motivated, knows how to be in community, knows how to work together as a team, I mean, those skills are, I don't think AI is going to be doing that. They might be able to you know, um, develop a bunch of widgets, but this is kind of beyond the robotic,
Yeah,
skills.
yeah. We had a good example of that on campus the other day. It was like, okay, so a child was asking a teacher, a staff person, can can you do this long division problem? And this might be a little revealing for like the staff person, but they couldn't remember how to do long division. Like they wrote it out there, like they know the thing, but then they're like, wait, do I like do this part first or that part? And I'm like, well, I remember, let me do it. And I grab it and I'm like, wait a minute, I actually don't remember. Like I can't remember this bottom part over here. And it was just so revealing that like the way we work is like we're theory understanders. Like we understand that we need to divide something into pieces and that it's big. And if given the right tools, that's all I really need to know. I need to know the theory and like where I'm headed. And then I can use tools like a calculator to figure it out, or like AI or whatever tools are going to be invented in the future. But to me, the tools are like memorization and they don't really stick with our like intuitive humanness unless you're actively using them, which obviously we don't use long division on paper, as we all use calculators. Like so it was interesting little takeaway there.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're a little bit over an hour. So if anyone has any closing comments, any last things to add to this conversation?
That's
Been
all.
fun.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I will share that link, Daniel. So thank you so much. I'll share that in the group.
Awesome.
And just so everybody knows, if you're watching on the replay, we're going to do these calls like every other Thursday. So just keep an eye on the group. You'll see them pop up. Everyone's welcome. We're pretty laid back. But we like to keep these conversations going, and it's great to get people from like all over the country or all over the world and just, touch base and see how everyone is doing it. And I think that this is just so great for the kids. And the more I talk about it, I feel the better it is for awareness and for our kids in general. So,
Hey,
yay.
cheers to that.
Yay. All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Yeah.
See you in the
Bye.
group.
Bye.